Tonight's featured readers are Louise Cary Barden and Rachel Barton. Louise is a 2023 New Women's Voices semi-finalist, has won the Lois Cranston Prize from, is it Calyx or Calyx? I can never remember. Calyx. The Oregon Poetry Association Award, the Harperprints chapbook competition, and others. Her career moved from college English instruction to copywriting and marketing management in places from Maine and Wyoming to North Carolina. After 8 years in Oregon, she's still trying to learn to love the rain. And our second reader tonight is Rachel Barton. She's a poet, editor, and writing coach. She edits her own Willowall journal and serves as associate editor for Cloud Bank Books. Her poems have been published in the Main Street Rag, Across the Margins, the Oregon English Journal, Circ, and several other journals. Find her recently released collection, This is the Likeness, and her newest collection, Jacob's Ladder, on her website. And I think there's some on the book, on the tape in the back. So without any further ado, we're going to go and start with Louise.
You're going to put the microphone way down. Oh, wait. I've just lost my timer. Wonderful. Okay.
No one's gonna run you out of here.
An alarm will sound, don't worry about it.
Well, hold your fingers up. I had it all set and now it's gone. Oh, there you go. Oh, there. I think I'm getting it back here.
There you go.
Nope, that's not it.
Looks like a speedometer.
Let's see, let's try timer. No. Well, if I put my glasses on, I might actually see it. Let's see here. No, I don't want that. Stopwatch. There we go. No. Oh, okay. Well, whatever. All right. Didn't look like that before, but I'll just go with it. Whatever. Okay. So I am Louise Barden, and this is the book that was a semi-finalist in the new. What have I done?
I'm going to point this at you.
Oh. All right. I have a teacher voice, so probably you can hear me, but it won't do well on Zoom, or whatever. So this is the one that just won, was a semi-finalist in the New Women's Voices. It's not about hummingbirds, but I took the hummingbird picture, and there is a poem, the title poem. And then, so I'm mostly going to read from that. I am 81. So I'm celebrating my 81st birthday with this book. And back in 1996, I won the Harperprints competition with this one, and I'm going to read a couple of poems out of it. And just so you know, I was alive then, and I'm very slow to send things in. I don't take rejection well. And so it's easier not to send them in. Okay. So my husband, bless him, we've been married 60 years, and as you know, marriages go up and down, and sometimes I write about both. And he has said, he discovered that when I got serious about writing about poetry, that nothing is private for a poet. Poor thing. And so you will hear some poems tonight where he really introduced me to the outdoors. He's an ecologist and taught me to love wilderness camping, and we've been wilderness camping many times in the Quetico Wilderness Canoe area north of Minnesota. I'll have a lot of details of nature. We're bird watchers and so forth. So, tea leaves. My husband, the scientist, says he will divorce me if I go to see a psychic. He doesn't know I read my horoscope every day, waiting for the one time it will be right. Or how on dark days I watch a slice of sunlight on the carpet, convinced that if it moves this way, life will improve. Yesterday, 3 butterflies caressed my pink impatience all at once before wind blew them away. Last week, a squirrel stared in my second-floor window, twin pecans sprouting from a branch between his teeth. Signs are everywhere. The voices of ambulances rising and falling past my window, the phone trilling just as I reached to call the caller. 6 months out of season, a purple bud erupts from my clematis. The important thing is to stay alert, hoping to see whether the mail arrives before or after 11 o'clock, to know how many minutes it takes the kettle to boil, or to catch him looking at me again, as if this were the first time before it all began. So, since I am trying to get used to the rain, this is a sonnet. I do write in forms sometimes, for my daughter-in-law, who told me that I should run outside. If the minute in the winter, every day, the sun would break through for just a little while, and that I had to watch out the window, and when it breaks through, to permacoat and run outside and be outside as long as it was out, and then I could go back in the house. So that was what I needed to do. So this is my sonnet for her. Under a changing sky, for Teresa. All winter, those dreary weeks at home, it seems no ray of sun can be allowed through endless days ceiling with low clouds. Rain's constant throb goes on against the ground until the summer's last baked clay has drowned in slippery mud and rain-soaked leaves that crowd against black flowers' autumn frost has bowed on stems bent into what seems a frown. And yet, on days dark enough to cause despair, a sudden break above, a shaft of light spills across the dreary, sleeping land and turns it gold, as the once gray air glows incandescent, rainbow hues so bright they could be the reflection of a greater hand. So this one was in Willowa, and it's about our second year of marriage, our second year. And the Mulberry is a river in Arkansas. My husband's from Arkansas. Our second year, after April rains, when the Mulberry rose over its rock islands, rushed above willows on the shore, we borrowed a canoe, ready for roar after roar of water, sudden angles of current. We hauled onto banks above falls and walked ahead to plot our course. Hard left, sharp right, straight down the chute, careening on, sweeping paddles in rhythm, muscles strained, tips of willows bent as we streamed by, honeysuckle tangles and beds of lady slippers disappearing in woods on either side. A stony hazard finally threw us, wild catapult to frigid water. No life jackets, just the will to surface in a stretch of slow stream. We laughed as we stroked for our drifting craft. A little fire to dry our clothes, a cup of hot coffee, 30 sets of rapids before we slept in our double sleeping bag. We didn't dream of August, the coming time without rain. On our cloud-swollen river, we didn't see ourselves sitting apart, too hot to touch, while tomatoes shriveled and marigolds turned brown. In the spring rush, we couldn't imagine life without water. I've been to some writing workshops, and at one of them I learned we had a lesson in guzzles, which are spelled Ghazal, and it's a Persian form. And so I started trying to work on it. And this one won the Oregon Poetry Association contest. guzzle in June. In summer heat, your body wants to feel the wind until you wish that you could steal the wind. The whirls of fragrant orange, sweet and juicy ripe, the scent you catch under its peel, the wind. This hour has brought green leaf and purple flower, and to the feathered spread a blue-winged teal, the wind. Clouds, trees, the chirp and chirk of birds fade fast, leaving behind one thing that's real, the wind. Do not think of snow blown cold for months ahead when each new winter storm carries in its creel the wind. The sails are raised, your wooden tiller set on course. What guides your boat upon its keel? The wind. You turn to leave so fast he cannot say goodbye, while sun is in his eyes and at your heel, the wind. All right, you're an experiment. This is an experiment. I've had people who have the book ask me to read this poem, and I always said, it's too long. It's a pantoum. For those of you who count, there are 14 verses. They have 4 lines each, and there is a lot of repetition in them. So we're going to see if you tolerate it. 2 sides, the same nickel, for Betsy, who was my sister, who died of cancer 10 years ago. Every night, my sister stood beside me at the kitchen sink while one of us submerged her pudgy hands in foam and water growing cold around the dishes and the dinner glasses as they clinked against the porcelain bowl. The other took each tumbler as if it were a loan from pudgy hands that had been submerged in foam to rinse and dry and pile it on a growing stack. Out of the porcelain bowl, each tumbler felt as if it were a loan we knew we could not drop or crack, but had to rinse and dry and pile it on the growing stack at ages 8 and 10, as if it were a game we had to play, although we knew we could not drop or crack a single one. We knew we were required to stay at ages 8 and 10, as if it were a game we had to play until the after-dinner chore was done. We could not leave a single one. We knew we were required to stay while Mama put the babies, 2 or 3 or 4, to sleep. Until the after-dinner chore was done, we could not leave. As we grew older, every night one washed and the other dried, while Mama put the younger kids, 2 or 3 or 4, to sleep. I waited quiet for the time when I could leave. My sister sometimes yelled or cried. As we grew older, every night one washed and the other dried, until at last I went to find a life of my own. I had waited quiet for the time when I could leave. My sister sometimes yelled or cried 2 more years, until she too could say she'd grown. After I went to find a life out on my own, our separate lives curved off and far away. We rarely felt the need to keep in touch those 2 years until she could say she'd grown and she went to college, love, and marriage. We didn't call each other much. Our separate lives curved off and far away. We rarely felt the need to keep in touch. We spent our days and hours just as we wished, apart. She went to college, love, and marriage. We didn't call each other much. We had babies. We got jobs. We each thought it was a start. We spent our days and hours as we wished apart, except now and then for just a little talk. We had babies. We got jobs. We each saw it as a start. We'd visit with our men and kids, and we too would take a walk. Now and then we needed just a little talk about our siblings and our kids, her teaching and my marketing career. We'd ask advice. We planned more visits with our men, and we too would take a walk. We told each other all the ways we'd learned life's prizes can exact a price. We talked about our siblings and our kids, now grown, our jobs, and we gave advice. We watched our father's death. saw Mom's need for company and care. We told each other all the ways we'd learned life's prizes always had a price. While our younger siblings built careers, we saw we had to share the space left by our father's death. Mom's need for company and care as she grew old. We took her to the doctor and to church. We helped her shop while our younger siblings built careers. We shared her hours at doctors and in hospitals and went with her to Sunday school before it stopped. As Mom grew old, we took her to the doctor and to church. We helped her shop. We split the time we knew she needed help. Good girls, we traded hours with her at doctors and hospitals and went with her to Sunday school before it stopped. I stood alone, Mom alive, still needing care, my sister dead. We split the time we knew our mother needed help. Good girls, we traded hours that grew cold as water around dishes and the fragile glasses we once clinked, until I stood alone, Mom alive, still needing care, my sister dead, and me with just those nights she stood beside me at the kitchen sink. Thank you. Let's see, I'm trying to, how am I doing? Am I all right? I don't know how I am. Saving the garden for Marnie. The vinca died again in that single spot near the front. First one turned gray in spite of the extra watering. It took days to go. Then two more shriveled quickly. There's nothing you can do. Leaving only 3 green mounds to unfold gold blooms along the border. Everything else thrives. The rampant coreopsis, the red and white impatiens spreading almost imperceptibly each night. Even the salvia this year have survived morning's forays by the slugs. But there is space. The plan of my English country garden interrupted. Every year the same, nature intruding on my rule of order, stopping the flow of hybrid colors. I've learned to buy potted blooms to fill an unplanned hole. This year they are yellow, like small daisies. Leaves so rough they might have grown on a roadside. They look sturdy enough to hold their own. The dazzling invisibility. We sit at a picnic table by the Arkansas River, talking with my husband's friends, as overhead 1,000 white wings appear against the blue to spiral and rise all together, fold their circle back on itself, rise again, until I stand head back, watching black-tipped feathers shimmer and tilt, gray and glow in the sun. I pull my husband's arm and point. He turns to look up at the shifting stream of birds, the way it wheels and whirls, tips and glints against the light. He whispers to me long enough to say, it happens every fall, these ibis gliding south above the water, and turns back to conversation. The next day in a downtown parking lot, he chats with an old friend about what's changed as we walk to see the new-built library and the shopping plaza going up nearby. I fall behind, then stop, frozen, gazing into a sky that's split by patterned coils of moving wings, the gleam of silver, white, and black, as feathers flash and sparkle, gather into waves that circle, glide until they shrink to dots along the far horizon, disappear. The footsteps and the voices fade away. I'm left alone to watch the shining cloud the others have seen so many times. They think they know it well. We got 5 more minutes? What was it? Where are we here? I don't know. Trying to see. Oh yeah, okay, I've got 2 more poems. The Potter's Shop. In the North Carolina mountains, There are places where there are sort of groups of craftspeople, and pottery is very big there. It's the practice, she says. I caress a polished bowl, big as a tabletop, perfectly round and even, emerald expanse lush with gigantic flowers. My husband taps its rim lightly, the touch you save for crystal. Feel, he commands. My fingers vibrate on the far circumference. She frowns. People ask how long it took to make this. I say 2 weeks and 25 years. Those years it took to raise our son. My husband lifts his hand, turns to stare at mugs, bowls, vases, plates, rows of bare clay drying, surfaces prepared for heat, finished colors set in fire and gleaming for those prepared to pay and take them home. Some people say I charge too much. Will they be wearing the same pair of shoes in 20 years when my mug still holds their coffee? I wander to the shelf of seconds, flawed and brilliant. My husband's gaze meets mine. We have bought this weekend in the mountains to learn each other's thoughts again. We stray toward the door. Come back when you're shopping, she says, and turns to make a pot of tea, start her reel. On the outside path, through her tangled patch of daisies, mint, impatience, our hands touch. Bright blueberries spill across a split rail fence. And the last one was written after a trip to the Quetico. In the moonlight, the roof of the tent is almost stained glass, a diffusion of shadows, ghosts of pines beyond the netted window, standing their black watch against the western crescent's silvery spread and stars bright net above. Silence punctuated by a soft lap of lake on rocks and a flat plunk, something slapping water. Close. Then far off wails, calls, like the voices of lost lovers, roll across the surface of everything. You could believe it a dream, conjured in the half-light of your city apartment, to be tossed away into the dawn, were it not for the hum of tiny wings beating against the screen beside your face, or the small sting on your neck. A buzz, while off in the dark, another slap resounds as beaver go about pushing logs to the stream. A breeze brushes soft branches into a rush of whispers, and the loon's distant moans and yodels echo on, as you know they will, long after you return home.
I'm experimenting on you too. Can you hear me? Okay. I've had several readings for this new book, and I didn't want to read what I always read. So you're getting the B-side, but they're still good. I'm just kidding, they're not really the B-side. There's several poems in this book that are in a format of 5 stanzas that are numbered and they're autonomous. And that's called a quadrilleur, and you'll see that repeated. This one is similar. It's called A Cast of Strangers, and it's a good example of how a poem can be created by the restrictions you devise for yourself, either from the form that you're using that has already been established, or in this case, I've limited myself. The title is A Cast of Strangers, and I have a different use for cast and stranger, I think, in each stanza. Never know what will turn up. A Cast of Strangers. A stranger walks beside you, casting seeds into the wind. See how they fly, helter-skelter, like a sheet of starlings. Or is it the swirling chaff of years past, like so many minnows schooling or dispersing? Maybe a stranger casts you off from shore, a slipped stitch in a sea of pearls, the dinghy small in a great slough, the craft's chine inclined to narrow, and you a bit wobbly until you settle on the bare board of a bench and begin to row. It won't be a stranger cast you out, ne'er-do-well pub crawler, or even worse, some demon spawn, but your own kin, sick of your stink. Bad habits like fish gone off, and no remedy for it but absence. Till a stranger comes again to lift you up from the cold cobbles of despair and self-loathing, casting about for a purchase. You seize on her robe, and all becomes light. You see the crystalline web that binds us, animal, vegetable, mineral. Oh, frabjous day, the journey begins, and at this moment, a silver cast to your hair, your bones home at last in weathered skin, its constellation of moles and liver spots, a small company of barnacles, do not seem strange to you at all. I won't have to think as hard on the next one. If I were to differentiate this book from the first that I wrote, I would say this one is more playful, both for me as the writer and for you as the reader. The Cloud People. In the early hours, we drive down the valley as it opens wide to mountains on either side. The sun splutters through the edge of a cloud to highlight a crisp articulation of treetops on the nearest ridgeline. That quickly fades when the Cloud People stride boldly down the mountainside to walk the valley floor. We continue through the blanket of fog, which closes and opens and closes again, the road a narrow strand which threatens to vanish in the distance. Then a slight lifting, and the Cloud People signaling in flags and streamers. They have so much to say to us. I think they don't usually stay down so long. What is different about today? It feels like a celebration. Unified field. She feels she is riding a wave, that her body is a wave of energy no longer confined to the distinct boundary of her skin. She moves as a collection of integrated frequencies, each strand oscillating with the next, and the whole of her only slightly differentiated from the world around her. That's why the hummingbird's wing beat goes right through her, a heavy, low hum of a thrum, connecting for a quick moment the heart of one being to the other. A little gasp escapes from her vibrating lips. Oh. The hummingbird moves on from the honeysuckle's trumpet of nectar, but she remains, contemplating the nature of being, the wonder. Where would we be without a moss poem? On the sovereignty of moss. From my window, an absence no sideways glance can redeem, only a dull gray shingle, inexperienced roof newly shod. Of the former mists of rain on moss, the soft green vibrance, no memory. The sad poverty of new governs the collective psyches of a nation, one cell phone upgrade after another. One new car, one new kitchen, one new floor. We remake our lives in the image of trend, neutrals, wood grain, stonework, brushed stainless. The electric green of the moss people excised from the palette, scraped from the roof's skin, an entire community struck from the rolls. Tell me how a heart should feel. It's not as if they don't belong in the damp of the Pacific Northwest. My hope, they pulled up stakes to settle somewhere else. Don't we all have a side facing north? You know, that seeding place, a self in shadow, half-formed, we nurture in secret. I mourn what has been lost. Above the dog-ear pickets of my neighbor's fence, a barren view only rain and time can restore. Of my moss self, I grow more tender. You like the moss. This is Helter Skelter after Paul McCartney. The roses rise to 7 feet, tall enough to gossip over the fence, their pink heads bobbing in a breeze. They jostle in a clamorous click, giddy in their long-stemmed glamour. I release the lissome beauties with a snip, gather an armful to take inside, where they continue to giggle. They can't help themselves. They laugh their heads off, spewing petals across the table. Later, in the quiet of evening, when I might surrender to the couch's invitation, the bouquet's riot of color challenges me, provokes me with its arresting beauty. I've got to get up and make some noise. This is a sad poem, seasonal affect disorder poem. Take your red sweater, with most of the buttons intact, but for the cracked one done in by the stainless barrel of the dryer. Slide the sleeves to 3/4 length, settle the hem just below the waist, tuck your shirt collar over the ribbed neckline to forestall an itch. Now you are ready. The calendar has turned to fall. Pre-winter light glances sideways across the counter and folds for the night before you can walk the dog. Walk in the dark, the dog won't care. Come morning, wake early in dim light, which will be darkness before the month is over. Tell your body to get used to it. Walk the dog again, your sweater buttoned now against the chill. You can wear red as many days as you like, whatever it takes to keep your heart pumping, your mind engaged. This is one about one of those weekends where, you could be productive, but feels like, kind of a chore. Just a small harvest moon. Sometimes a Friday full moon calls for carbs, like a big bowl of popcorn, or in my husband's case, a bowl of peaches and ice cream, something to fend off self-doubt and worrisome dreams. Because after you eat all that, you can't sleep anyway, and it's the weekend, so you don't have to. Stick to any schedule, you're free, in a bubble of self-generated tasks, which can occupy you productively for several episodes of your favorite crime series, or maybe a short clip of the evening news, which don't carry the onus of failure because anything you do is something more than nothing. So go ahead, clean the sink, empty the dishwasher, run the laundry, iron your husband's shirt, it's all gravy. You are productive, which means you can have value, even though you may not be advancing yourself professionally. Who's taking a measure anyway? Only you. And you're already scored because you're doing your anything, which is something, right? Maybe it's enough to admire the garden going to seed, green tomatoes telling you not to jump to conclusions, though the rain pummels the flowers of the glory bower, shreds them into a thin carpet along the drive, which you track inside, petal after petal. A lot of my poems are inspired by dreams, and this happens to be the case with this one. You just don't know where those things come from. Lunch for my editor. Grilled cheese, a homey metaphor for comfort, pops up in my dream as a bag lunch my editor agrees to carry. I have never sought to nourish or comfort my editor before. What dimensional rift slips in twilight between waking and sleeping to task me with grilling a warm sandwich he will eat cold later in the day? What is the proper etiquette? Do I cut the sandwich into toast points? Or leave it whole, which is to say, unedited? I will certainly not trim the crust, though I might wrap the sandwich in a napkin and then a layer of foil as if to hold in the heat, which is ludicrous, I know. Still, the napkin will absorb some moisture as the sandwich cools. Whatever his talent or reputation, no editor needs a soggy grilled cheese. To add a pickle to the bag, a small flourish would hardly be an effort at all. This is a poem I wrote that as it went along, I thought I'd make it into a children's book, but I haven't got anyone to jump on that, so my crit group assured me it was for grown-ups too. If the fox went out, then who came back? I finger the latch, the click and slide, and wonder who else has come inside. When you come back, the red tail of your hair will swish through the air like the scarf that you wear, but will I be there? Who else has come inside? I slip on sock feet across boards worn smooth, Listen for the creak of heavy feet at the pantry door where we could never sneak for snacks before. I listen for the mattress's groan of springs extended, or for the corrugated rise of the roll-top credenza, as if we have treasures a thief would want to pilfer. I wear a vapor of my unknown visitor like an itchy sweater into the creep of morning. Then it vanishes, poof. And I do feel better, home again, to the smell of hot cocoa and toast with butter. I have a wealth of sisters, including Louise, but I have some that came with my family originally. This is from my sister Sarah. Up north with my sister in February after Angela Hessen. All through the days, it stays. The sadness of coming down the mountain from the high lookout, where mountain ridges hem the view in every direction. White snow blending earth and sky, but for the lineation of ridge line, peaks so young and sharp the snow falls away in a wobbly line of black ink. She is there, in that rarefied light, unencumbered and brave. And when we talk, I feel the click or slide of resolution that had been wanting, which I carry like a piece of string or fragment of stone down the mountain to the treed climb of my home. There I can worry the memory, shuttle bits of my day aside to make room for fuller breaths, our calm alliance deep as bone.
Thank you, Rachel and Louise. Wasn't that terrific? So both Rachel and Louise have books in the back. There's cookies back there. And there's two lists. One is for the mailing list. So if you want to be on the mailing list, sign up on that list. And one's for the open mic. So if you read at the open mic, read on that list. So we're going to take a little break, buy some books, eat all the cookies. Otherwise, I have to eat the cookies. I've been informed I'm not supposed to eat all the cookies. But I do. And then we'll come back after a little while for the open mic.